Morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Mike's MMA Picks Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown Show, brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We've got UFC Sacramento this evening. It's going to take a special lineup as far as DraftKings lineup constructions go. Lots of underdogs on this card are live. We can get things started here right off the bat. 12 fights. We're going to kick things off in the men's 135-pound division. We've got Vince Morales taking on Benito Lopez. Benito Lopez fighting out of Team Alpha Male. One thing to be aware of, there were 6 Team Alpha Male fighters on this card. I expect a lot of hometown love. Vince Morales, 9-3 record, took a loss on the Contender Series less than a year ago, believe it or not. 8,500 for Vince Morales, minus 130 by the odds makers. Benito Lopez, plus 110 at BetDSI, 7,700. Benito Lopez, we didn't get to see much from him in his last bout against Manny Bermudez. He got snuffed out pretty quickly and finished on the ground. I don't think he has to worry about that in this fight against Vince Morales, who puts a lot of weight on his front foot, really relies on his boxing, and I think Benito Lopez has a few options here. I really enjoyed watching his amateur fights and the progression into his professional mixed martial arts career, though he does get a little wild in there, which is a concern for me, and he doesn't have the best chin. He is coached up for this bout. I'm actually, from a DraftKings perspective, going to be picking Benito Lopez to win this fight and to come through with a decent DraftKings score. One of the dangers of rostering this fight early in the card is that you may have a solid night to work with, or you may be looking up at the standings. So proceed with caution. Benito Lopez plus 110 underdog here. Next up, we've got Livia Renata Souza taking on Brianna Van Buren at 115 pounds. These fighters are going to be $8,200 and $8,000 respectively in DraftKings. So you may want to target this fight. I see this fight as a high action fight. There may be a few reversals here. Souza, last time we saw her out, she fought Frota, who came in at 123 pounds. This huge girl, and took a loss in that fight. That was a very, very hotly contested matchup, and I am looking at Van Buren here, who she's been fighting out of AKA, looked impressive in her Invicta fight, and Frota took a loss in that fight against Souza here. That Van Buren young lady is a impressive wrestler. She transitions well on top. Haven't seen too much of her on her back, and a concern for me is she's going to be fighting a high-level grappler here in Souza. For $8,000 in DraftKings, I think Souza is going to be live here. She only has one loss on her record. A lot of times when you see fighters come back from their first defeat, they switch things up and they come back in impressive fashion. I have a feeling, especially considering the face-off at weigh-ins, that this fight is going to see a lot of action. So give me Souza in this fight. 8,000 in DraftKings. Van Buren, though, I understand she's coming in hot here with the AKA backing, and with Daniel Cormier having her back, and also, I mean, she's a southpaw. She looks a lot like Cormier in there when she's fighting, with blasting her double legs, and it may be a dangerous fight, but I just think Souza has more weapons in this matchup. So give me Souza. Next matchup, we've got the men's 135-pound division. We've got Ping Lang Liu taking on Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez comes in at 7,500. Ping Lang Liu, 8,700. Ping Lang Liu is minus 155 at the betting window. Ping Lang Liu has a 3-inch reach advantage. This fight is expected to go to a decision at minus 240. I liked what I saw from Jonathan Martinez in his debut against Andre Sukumta. Although he was overpowered in that fight, and he showed a lot of heart. He's got a pretty diverse game. Can throw up some subs, but Ping Lang Liu, who's fighting out of Team Alpha Male, is a very aggressive fighter, and he has a propensity of coming out hot and emptying his tank early. Martinez, a concern of mine is that he overcommits on low percentage maneuvers, putting himself in bad situations. I don't want to necessarily say he has low fight IQ because we haven't seen too much of him inside of the octagon. Ping Lang Liu, this is another guy I was watching on the regional scene and also his amateur career. He did not look good, so he's had a rapid progression. Ping Lang Liu, I believe, is the rightly favorite at minus 155. It depends. With Ping Lang Liu, he is going to come out and probably rack up some significant DraftKings points early, but I don't expect him to get a finish here. Martinez is very tough out. At 8,700, I think you can find better options. I think that Ping Lang Liu is overpriced here in DraftKings. So we'll go with Ping Lang Liu for a decision victory. Next up, very interesting bout in the men's 145-pound division. We've got Darren Elkins taking on Ryan Hall. Darren Elkins, 24-7 overall record. I was at the fight when he had a split decision victory over Dennis Bermudez a few years ago, and he's definitely a wily veteran. He's not going to have to worry about getting knocked out in this spot against Ryan Hall. This should be it could be, and I think it should have some interesting grappling sequences. Elkins 7,900 minus 125. Ryan Hall plus 105, 8,300 for Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall has serviceable stand-up. He uses it to keep his opponents at bay and to keep them distracted. But he's going to be in search of a submission here. This guy shoots for the legs and is looking to lock up some sort of heel hook or toe hold. We'll see what he does in this matchup. He's got a lot of options because Darren Elkins is not going to be afraid to engage. He knows, Elkins knows that Ryan Hall excels in the 50-50 position, and I expect to see a few of those take place in this fight. Elkins will be relentless, and this is going to be on home turf. You got another team alpha male fighter here. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision. Elkins is one tough guy, man. We don't see him submitted very often. Ryan Hall 7-1 in his mixed martial arts career. I'm actually leaning towards Elkins here to come through. 7,900. He, over the course of 3 rounds, could put up a number of points. He's planning to win the striking battle. He does have a lot to be desired in the striking department. I've watched many of his fights where he kind of he's so heavy when it comes to grappling. The Michael Johnson fight, there have been many others. It's going to come down to quickness in this fight, and I'm concerned that Ryan Hall may be the quicker fighter here. So Elkins is really going to have to dig deep, as he's done in the past, create some sort of scramble and make this a very ugly fight. That's what he has to do to win this. But it's going to be hard to when you're playing with Ryan Hall, who's so dangerous on the ground. This is a very dangerous fight. So give me Darren Elkins to get the victory here. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight does go to a decision, although it's supposed to end with inside the distance. Next up, we have a mystery fight. Lots of question marks here. Juliana Pena taking on Nico Montano. 135 pounds. We haven't seen Pena in forever. I believe she was submitted by Shevchenko in one of her previous fights. $9,000 DraftKings, minus 200 favorite for Pena. Pena did look great on the scales. Montano, man, 7,200 plus 165. Montano is actually the older fighter, believe it or not. Montano had to have been mortified for her previous weigh-in debacles and just the injuries, and she's got a lot to prove. A lot of people think that belt that she had wrapped around her waist was a fake belt. She shouldn't have been deserving of that. She lost to a fighter who fought on the last card in a very hotly debated 5-round affair. I actually thought Montano won that fight. But again, she has a big step up in competition against Juliana Pena. I think Montano is going to be the grittier fighter with more weapons, hungrier fighter. I'm going to roll with Montano here. I think that Montano is also the better fighter on the feet as well. Pena does have a 4-inch reach advantage here. This fight should go to a decision. But Montano, I think she's going to have more in the gas tank here, and she's going to come out victorious. So we're going to go with an underdog here at plus 165. No play on it, though, but I'm going to pick the underdog. Next, we've got Shaman Moraes taking on Andre Fili. This is a fantastic matchup. Shaman Moraes, Black House fighter, 8,400, plus 100 at BetDSI. Only 28 years of age, has fought, he's fought a number of fantastic fighters in the UFC. His fight against Magomed Sharapov, he faced some serious adversity in that fight. Matt Sales, he was able to land multiple eye pokes and came out with a victory in that fight. And that Sodiq Yusuff fight, talk about some high-level technical Muay Thai striking. That was a great fight. So Andre Fili, on the other hand, 7,800 minus 120 favorite. This line, believe it or not, has flipped twice, and Andre Fili, 19-6 record, 29 years old. So he's been around the game a long time. He's becoming a technician. His victory over Miles Jury, he used the jab. His last 6 fights have gone to a decision, and he's probably going to come here and not want to mess around with Shaman Rice's power. Rice is one tough Brazilian, and if you pay attention to his corner, they really try to inspire him in between rounds when he tends to run out of juice late in fights. And I was at Shaman Rice's fight against Julio Arce. That was a pretty bloody affair where he had to dig deep in that fight. Andre Fili, we haven't seen him knocked out in a long time. I have a hunch that this fight may end inside the distance. And if it's going to end inside the distance, I think we'll see Rice finish Andre Fili, though there is narrative and research that suggests that Andre Fili by decision is a decent play, plus 175. But another play to look at is Shaman Rice scorecards no action, sitting at minus 175 at that line. I believe that's at 5 times. Got to check that out. Great fight, though. You're going to have to pick some underdogs here. I am going to be picking an upset in this fight with Shaman Rice. I think that Andre Fili has gotten by with a number of close decisions. He, I believe, went to a split with Dennis Bermudez, and he just does enough. I know we've seen him develop his ground game and his wrestling. He even landed a few takedowns on Dennis Bermudez. This fight, Moraes could be taken down. Moraes spent a large chunk of this camp over in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai. But I'm going to go with Shaman Rice to score an upset in this fight. I think we're going to see a number of upsets today, which should make for a fantastic DraftKings evening if you're creating some diverse lineups and leave a lot of money on the table. So we'll see. Well, this fight should end fairly quickly coming up here. We've got Mike Rodriguez taking on John Allen. John Allen, a shoot-a-box fighter. Muay Thai base, 6,800 plus 360 underdog. We're talking light heavyweights here. This fight shouldn't go the distance, sitting at minus 300. Mike Rodriguez, 9,400 in DraftKings, minus 450 favorite. Mike Rodriguez, he has a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight. Has a recent win over Adam Milstead. He's a southpaw. What I like about him using his length is if opponents try to close the distance, he does have dangerous knees to keep opponents at bay. And I think Mike Rodriguez, who was originally supposed to fight John Vellante in this spot, is the worthy favorite. and maybe the most popular play as far as DraftKings goes. So I'm going to roll with Mike Rodriguez to get the job done here. This fight should end inside the distance, so should rack up a lot of DraftKings points. Next up, we have Cesar Ferreira taking on Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, 12-3, only 25 years old, fighting out of King's MMA, 8,600 in DraftKings, minus 160 favorite, taking on Ferreira, who 7,600 plus 140 underdog, 34 years old, has been through the meat grinder in his career. At one point was Vitor Belfort's protege when he was on all that TRT, and somehow Ferreira has managed to maintain his physique through all these years. And I've got to wonder if he was on that Brazilian sauce for much of his success here. Ferreira, 13-7 record, high-level black belt. Vettori, one tough hombre. Adesanya referred to him as a blockhead. Well, that blockhead almost won a decision over Israel Adesanya. He does not go away. Vettori, we're talking about PED use. You know, he was popped by USADA, spent some time on the sidelines, so I'm interested to see what type of Marvin Vettori we got to come out here. Rafael Cordero, love seeing that guy in the corner of different fighters like RDA at one point, Gastelum, etc. You know, Vanderlei Silva back in the day. I've met him a number of times. Great guy, great coach, and I think he'll have a great game plan here for Vettori. I think we're going to see Marvin Vettori come through with a victory in this spot and pay off his $8,600 price tag. Next up, very interesting fight in the middleweight division. We've got Carl Roberson taking on Wellington Turman. Wellington Turman fighting out of Curitiba, Brazil. Shoot-a-box fighter, 7,100 plus 175 underdog. 9,100 for Carl Roberson, minus 215 favorite. Carl Roberson spends a great deal of time with Corey Anderson. That has not helped him inside of the octagon much in his fights against Cesar Mutante Ferreira, as well as, we saw him have big-time success early against Glover Teixeira, but then he got strangled. This fight, though, is another dangerous fight against a Wellington Turman who's 15-2. He's got a great ground game, and you know, when you're dealing with a 22-year-old fighter, they're willing to for the most part take big risks, and they aren't totally aware of self-regulation as far as energy output during the fight. So Turman, octagon debut, may come out with some jitters. We'll see. Carl Roberson should have a huge advantage on the feet here. This fight is a fight to target. Not expected to go to a decision at minus 225. I like Roberson in this spot. I think he's just a savvy veteran. It's funny you say that with a 7-2 record, but he's maintained his composure in the octagon when he hasn't been submitted, and I believe he has a win over Spahn as well, a quick win in his Contender Series bout. I think you're playing with fire with playing Turman at 7,100. This fight could end quickly, and he may not put up a lot of points. But on the other hand, when you're searching for underdogs who may come through, he is a live underdog in this spot. Roberson, I expect him to try to keep the distance, use his what semblance of a takedown defense he has here. Hopefully he's been trying to shore that up. I've been following his Instagram and Twitter accounts, and it seems like that's something he's been trying to address. But is it going to be fast enough to do that when you're facing a fighter who's coming in on short notice here? Remember, John Phillips was the original opponent. John Phillips probably was not looking to take that fight to the ground. He was looking to stand and bang. So this is one of those cases where it's a dangerous opponent coming in here. So give me Roberson here at -200. And also 9,100 in DraftKings. Next up, very interesting fight. We've got Mirsad Bektic taking on Josh Emmett at 145 pounds. Emmett has looked phenomenal since dropping down to 145 pounds, with the exception of his fight against Jeremy Stevens, where he had his face rearranged. Bektic, 13-1 record. Josh Emmett, 14-2. Josh Emmett was on his way to losing a fight against Michael Johnson, but he, as we've seen, carries his power deep into fights. And you talk about that a slobber knocker. The punch that he landed to end the fight with Michael Johnson went on a number of highlight reels. And that's one of the things that when you talk recency bias, they are going to have that in the back of their minds. And I think that's going to keep some people off of Mirsad Bektic here. Josh Emmett, 7,400 plus 140 underdog. Another team alpha male fighter. Mirsad Bektic, he is a TriStar fighter who 8,800 -160 is progressing and getting stronger, faster, smarter. Only 28 years of age. We saw he took that loss to Darren Elkins, where he was completely destroying Elkins, and then got hurt and got finished in dramatic fashion. So you talk about a loss that can change someone's trajectory. That had a huge impact on his career. Bektic has a number of advantages in this fight, and I think we're going to see he's the more well-rounded fighter. He has had some gas tank issues in the past. I think that he's going to come in here and shine. This fight is not expected to go to a decision, believe it or not, at -115. Emmett, he didn't... Against Michael Johnson, his face started to swell up in the third round, but he didn't. We didn't see any big time damage. Remember, he's got plates all over his face, and he sustained that horrific orbital fracture. I still don't think that face is completely healed up. I think that Bektic is going to have is going to put some work in and hurt Emmett late in this fight. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a doctor stoppage at some point here. So give me Mirsad Bektic to get this victory at a -160. Next up, we've got the co-main event of the evening. We've got Uriah Faber taking on Ricky Simón. Ricky Simón, you talk about passing of the torch fight. This is it. He has a 3-inch reach advantage. 9,300 in DraftKings. Very, very active fighter. Only 26 years old. -360 favorite. I got in at -215 and -220. Uriah Faber, 6,900 plus 290 underdog. Uriah Faber, 40 years old. At the lower weight classes, at 135 pounds, I am very wary of rostering fighters who are in their upper 30s or early 40s. inevitably, the quickness goes. Granted, he spent time off working on his grappling game and staying in the training room. Faber, great shape. But I think that this is just going to be this is somebody who's coming back not for a paycheck, because he has so much money between running Team Alpha Male and all of his pay-per-view spots. Faber does without the belt, but you see somebody who has that itch, who loves the sport, who thinks they can still compete. But Ricky Simón is man. When he fought Merab in his debut on short notice, that was incredible. Incredible fight. When he fought Yaya, Simón fought a great game plan. We know he's got high fight IQ. He's got that mullet. And he has the energy level to go a full 3 rounds hard. And that, I believe, is what separates him from the pack. He's got a lot of power, built like a fire hydrant. He has been submitted in the past, but I don't think he's going to give Faber the opportunity to lock up a submission. The Jimmy Rivera fight against Faber, I thought, was a passing of the torch a few years ago, and this is going to be another one here. So give me Ricky Simón to get this victory. This fight is expected to go to a decision at -240, so we may not see the most activity as far as strikes go, but it could be. It depends on what Simón wants to do in this spot. He has a few ways of winning this fight. He could win this fight inside the distance also if he starts pouring it on late. But give me Ricky Simón to get the job done here. Next up, we've got a very, very fascinating matchup. Striker versus grappler in the main event. Germaine de Randamie, the Iron Lady, with a 6.5-inch reach advantage, taking on Aspen Ladd, who is coming in on a quick turnaround. Had that horrific weight cut as we saw yesterday, but we need to realize that sometimes doesn't mean much, because she looked horrible in the I believe it was the Tanya Evinger fight when she Aspen Ladd went to the scales. She had a really, really tough time there and came out and dominated. Germaine de Randamie is a different animal, though. 8-3 overall record for de Randamie as far as mixed martial arts goes, but there's definitely more to that. De Randamie is actually she has a pretty extensive kickboxing record, 37-0 kickboxing record with a number of knockouts. Aspen Ladd, great ground game, very heavy on top, -145 favorite, only 24 years old. This fight, -210, is not expected to go to a decision. Aspen Ladd, I thought she lost that fight to Eubanks. Her stand-up is atrocious. Feel bad saying that, but her stand-up is atrocious. We need to do something about these judges who value the grunts that female fighters make when they are landing strikes, like Chukagan and a few others. Ladd is one of those grunters. I don't think she's going to have the opportunity to be landing those strikes unless she has de Randamie grounded and she's landing strikes on top. And she may be raining down strikes on top at some point in this fight. Sad to say that, because I think that Aspen Ladd, she's there for the taking right now. I think that she's a beatable fighter, and she's growing, she's progressing, and if she's going to lose, this is going to be a time where she does. De Randamie has decent takedown defense. 7,300 in DraftKings, +125 underdog. We've seen the line slowly close here. And honestly, this is a really tough fight to call because it's going to end one way or the other. De Randamie is the much more proficient, fluid striker, and she held her own and beat Holly Holm a number of years ago. I was at that fight, a horrific main event. And Aspen Ladd, all she needs is one takedown. I mean, granted, de Randamie she has on paper good takedown defense, and she's looked decent stopping takedowns against the cage. But Aspen Ladd, a problem with fighting her is when she gets a takedown. Eubanks was a high-level black belt, so she had the ability to reverse positions, and she was caught in some really tough spots, was able to get out of them. But Aspen Ladd, I don't think she's going to let de Randamie get back up in this spot. So it's a dangerous, dangerous fight. I think the safer play is going to be that the fight doesn't go the distance. At -210, I got in at -195. But this fight, I am going to be rolling with a mix of both fighters in DraftKings. I'm going to give a slight edge to de Randamie just because I feel like her striking is gonna pay dividends, and that I mean, we saw Eubanks having a lot of success on the feet. De Randamie has to make Aspen Ladd pay and pay early with strikes. She's gonna have to hurt her, because if she doesn't and Aspen Ladd is able to close the distance, then once she gets that takedown, it's game over for de Randamie. That's what I think. At least that's one man's opinion here. But de Randamie, I'd like to see her get a victory here. I'm not going to be making a play on this fight besides that it doesn't go the distance. Great fight though. Not a main event, though. Should not be a main event. There were many other options they could have rolled with here. There are so many fighters who are on the up and up, deserving of a main event. And the UFC San Antonio card next week is something that I am really looking forward to. So I want to wish everybody out there a great fight day. Best of luck in your contests. This breakdown show has been brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. You can follow me on Twitter at MikesMMAPicks, as well as at BetMMA.tips and CapperTech. And I want to just say thank you to everybody who's been watching these videos. And it's been a lot of fun doing this, and I look forward to putting many more together. So thanks, everybody. Take it easy.